Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a deep plunge into, well, a really critical topic.
Oh,
Understanding the profound economic implications of excluding Black Americans and immigrants from the U.S. economy. Our mission, like always, is to unpack this fascinating source material, specifically an article called The Economic Consequences of Excluding Black Americans and Immigrants from the U.S., and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge for you.
right. And this deep dive, it really moves beyond just the moral arguments, which are vital, of course, absolutely foundational, but we're zeroing in here on the tangible economic effects, how the very vitality, the pulse of the U.S. economy is just so tied to everyone participating.
It's a perspective that honestly makes you rethink things. You're going to hear some, frankly, eye-opening insights today. It's kind of a shortcut to getting really well-informed on a topic that, well, it touches everyone, whether they realize it or not. Okay, let's unpack this then. So right from the get-go, the article puts forward this really powerful central idea. This isn't just about what's right or wrong, morally speaking. It argues that exclusion has these profound economic implications for the entire country. It highlights pretty vividly how these communities aren't just, part of American society. They actively enrich it with their diverse perspectives, skills, and innovations.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is the how, the mechanism behind that enrichment. The article explains that Black Americans and immigrants, they don't just participate passively. They occupy vital roles in key industries and sectors. They're actively driving growth through starting businesses, through their labor, and crucially, as consumers. They're not just cogs. They're like essential gears in the whole economic machine.
And the data, when you look at it, it's hard to argue with. We hear a lot about immigrant entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
But the source makes it super clear. These individuals have consistently launched successful businesses. They create jobs, yes, but they actually stimulate whole local economies. And then think about Black Americans. I mean, they make up a huge segment of the workforce. Across so many fields, it's a massive amount of human capital that maybe we don't always fully appreciate.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the potential long-term risks if you were to exclude these populations, well, they're immense. Imagine, like the article suggests, a significant drop in labor force participation. That would directly hit overall productivity and innovation, too. Because you're narrowing the pool of skills. You're losing those diverse perspectives that are so important for, creative problem solving, adapting to the market. That absence of variety, it can really stifle breakthrough thinking.
Yeah, that point about stifled innovation, that really hits home. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. So what does this actually look like on the ground? Let's zoom in a bit on the specific impacts. When you really stop and try to picture the U.S. workforce without the contributions from these communities, the source paints a pretty vivid picture. Almost unsettling, really. A devastating blow to some really foundational sectors.
It is sobering, yeah. Take healthcare, for instance. What often gets missed, I think, even by people in the sector, is just how deeply reliant our healthcare system is, especially in vulnerable communities,
Why?
on the contributions of Black Americans and immigrants. As nurses, caregivers, support staff, often they're the very backbone ensuring things run. If they weren't there, it wouldn't just be staffing shortages. The article suggests a systemic crisis, worsening healthcare access, lower quality care, and widening those already existing health disparities. Big time.
Wow, okay. And what about other areas?
Then there's agriculture. Immigrants play an absolutely crucial role, especially in those really labor-intensive jobs. Farm hands, harvest supervisors, that sort of thing. If that workforce shrinks significantly, we're not just talking small disruptions. The article warns about widespread underproduction, which leads directly to higher food prices, even actual food shortages. That would hit every single household.
Right, affecting everyone's budget.
And construction, too. Black Americans, immigrant laborers, they often do the physically demanding work that literally builds our country. Homes, schools, roads, if they're not there, construction projects slow down, obviously. But the article hints it could spark a broader economic crisis. Think about it. So many other industries rely on construction humming along, manufacturing, real estate.
So it becomes crystal clear, doesn't it? Their absence doesn't just diminish the talent pool. It actually jeopardizes the stability and the productivity of these absolutely vital industries. It's not just a shortfall, it's like a systemic shock to the nation. Okay, we've talked workforce, but what happens when whole segments of the population, representing, billions in spending power, are marginalized? That ripple effect.
Yeah.
It doesn't just touch the consumer market, it fundamentally shifts it. So what does this all mean for the market itself?
Oh, this is a huge piece of the puzzle. A really massive piece. Black Americans, immigrant families, They represent a substantial, really vibrant part of the consumer market. They fuel demand across pretty much every sector you can think of, from, small local shops to huge corporations.
And the numbers cited are just compelling. Black households alone, contributing billions every year to consumer spending. That impacts everything: retail, housing, tech, entertainment, you name it. And it's not just the big chains either. The article points out both groups often disproportionately support local businesses, injecting vital cash right into their communities.
And the ripple effects, if that demand drops, they'd be profound. And frankly, pretty chilling the way the article describes it. You'd see a significant drop in sales, right? That compromises the financial health of countless businesses, which then cascades into declining revenues, layoffs, shrinking tax bases for cities and states, and even, interestingly, a less diverse range of products and services for all consumers.
It's such a powerful illustration. Fostering an inclusive economy isn't just, a nice thing to do. It's absolutely vital for keeping consumer spending robust. It's an economic pillar, really, not just a bonus. And it's not just about what we buy, right? It's also about what we pay into the system. Let's shift gears a bit to the government's fiscal health, because these groups, they contribute significantly to the nation's tax base.
The figures here are pretty staggering, actually. Black Americans and immigrants collectively, they pay billions in federal, state, and local taxes every single year. Just to give you a sense of scale, the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, they reported that immigrant households alone paid something like $11.7 billion in just state and local taxes back in 2018. So imagine city budgets, funding for roads, schools, even the stability of Social Security down the line. A big chunk of that funding comes from these households.
Okay, so get this. If that kind of crucial tax revenue were to suddenly decline significantly,
Right.
what would that actually do to funding for essential services? What would that look like for communities?
Well, the article outlines some really severe consequences. Critical areas like education, healthcare, Social Security, they all rely heavily on these tax dollars. So a serious cutback. It could mean compromised educational opportunities for kids, an overwhelmed healthcare system that just can't cope, and maybe even diminished Social Security benefits for retirees, all of which, dramatically impacts everyone's quality of life across the board.
It really underscores the point. This isn't just an abstract economic issue. As the article puts it, it's a profound societal concern. It literally affects everyone, no matter their background. Now let's pivot again to something that really fuels America's edge, you could say: innovation. The spark of innovation. We often think of it coming from maybe specific labs or universities, but this article shines a light on another really powerful source: entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely. The article describes Black Americans and immigrants as a, quote, critical engine for innovation and economic growth. They're not just starting businesses, they're creating ventures that really add to local economies, create jobs, and crucially boost overall economic dynamism. There are even studies mentioned showing that immigrant-owned companies often generate substantial revenue and, interestingly, show higher rates of innovation compared to non-immigrant-owned ones.
So take them out of the equation, and you'd have this huge entrepreneurial vacuum, as the source calls it, which would naturally stifle competitiveness, limit creative output, and ultimately mean less economic diversity, fewer choices, less vibrancy for everyone.
And connecting this to the bigger picture again, it directly hits our global competitiveness. These groups bring such a wealth of cultural knowledge, different languages, that fosters genuinely innovative thinking, different approaches to solving problems. The article notes that companies with more diversity, they're just better equipped to adapt, to understand and respond to changing global trends, because they have a more nuanced view of different markets, different consumers worldwide.
It seems really clear then. Losing this critical human capital, as the article terms it, it would seriously diminish the innovative edge of U.S. companies and could lead to the kind of economic stagnation that, well, no country wants. Not just losing workers, it's like losing a future advantage. Okay, let's broaden out a bit now. Beyond the direct economic hits, what about social cohesion? This isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about the actual fabric of our society.
This is so vital. The article explains how excluding these groups, it doesn't just create economic gaps, it actively exacerbates existing inequalities, leading to these deep divides in access to resources, to opportunities. And this doesn't just hurt those excluded, it creates broader societal rifts. Communities get polarized, understanding breaks down. But on the flip side, diversity, as the article really emphasizes, fosters a culture of innovation, yes, but also understanding. It makes communities inherently more adaptable, more resilient, because you benefit from all those different perspectives.
Okay, let's unpack this by looking back. Does history give us any validation here? What can we learn from past experiences? Inclusion versus exclusion. Do we have clear lessons?
The historical context the article provides is incredibly instructive.
Yeah.
It talks about periods of exclusion, like the era of segregation, how that severely restricted opportunities for Black Americans. It stifled potential, hindered economic growth for everyone. The article really underscores that this resulted in a measurable, considerable loss of productivity, of innovation, things that could have benefited the whole country.
And the flip side, when there was more inclusion.
Exactly. Periods of inclusion have consistently shown pretty remarkable economic results. Think about the post-World War II era, often seen as this time of unprecedented growth, right? The article points out it directly witnessed the integration of diverse populations into the workforce, and that fueled advancements in technology, culture, commerce. It specifically links the influx of immigrants during various times to surges in entrepreneurial spirit, significant job creation, especially in fast-growing sectors like tech and healthcare.
So, the historical takeaway from the article seems really strong. Exclusionary practices are not just morally questionable, they were economically detrimental. It's kind of a stark warning, isn't it? We rob ourselves, rob society of the benefits of a diverse, inclusive workforce.
At our own peril.
Right. Bringing it all together then. The article keeps reinforcing its main, powerful point. Excluding these communities would only serve to exacerbate existing issues, thereby jeopardizing the overall economic stability of the nation. It's a clear warning, unequivocal.
And what's truly striking is that unwavering message. The contributions of Black Americans and immigrants are, quote, not only vital, but indispensable. Ignoring them risks stalling innovation. It risks crippling workforce diversification. It means forfeiting all those essential benefits that come from having a richly varied labor pool. It's not just about avoiding harm, it's about unlocking potential, our future potential.
The article then shifts, which is great. It offers a compelling forward-looking vision for the U.S. economy, one that's rooted in inclusivity. It doesn't just identify the problem, it actually outlines a path forward.
Yes, and it goes further than just vision. It offers concrete, actionable steps in its call to action section, tailored for different groups. For policymakers, it's about promoting equal access to education and job opportunities, really tackling those funding disparities, implementing genuinely inclusive programs. For businesses, cultivating inclusive workplace cultures, using things like targeted recruitment efforts, robust mentorship programs. And then, at the community level, where you, the listener, come in advocating for immigrant rights, supporting local employment initiatives, maybe facilitating workshops or skill-building sessions, empowering everyone.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener, tuning in today? Well, it means your understanding of this topic. It isn't just academic, it's actually crucial. Crucial for really thinking about our collective future, how we build a genuinely prosperous and equitable nation together. And that brings us to the end of another deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us as we explored this really compelling economic case for inclusivity in the U.S.
You know, given the clear, pretty undeniable economic benefits we've just unpacked from this source, maybe the final thought is this. How might our very understanding of national prosperity need to evolve to truly reflect the contributions of all the people who build and sustain it?
That's a powerful question, a really powerful question to end on. We hope this deep dive has sparked some new thoughts for you, maybe even some actions you might consider, whether they feel big or small. Remember, gaining this kind of nuanced knowledge, that's often the most critical first step towards fostering real, meaningful change.